From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Speaking with the Enemy.
All right, for the last time this season, for the regular season, it is Speaking with the Enemy, and very pleased to be joined now by 620 CKRM's, the voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, DT on SC, Derek Taylor. DT, I wanted to talk about who's playing, but I guess it's more prudent to talk about who's not playing on Saturday in Hamilton.
Yeah, we already know Cody Fajardo, Dan Clark, Duke Williams won't be playing, and Micah Johnson is away on some family business. So he won't be playing. They were not even going to travel those guys. Then there's going to be a bunch of guys that they bring, but they don't intend to play. Guys like William Powell isn't going to, and there'll be a few more that they sprinkle through defensive line, linebackers and stuff. But it will be a dramatically reduced squad for the Riders on Saturday.
All right. So, I mean, this game will kind of have all the elements of kind of the backups of Saskatchewan, but the Ticats have something to play for. Do you kind of look at that as a good test for some of these backup players? Because I mean, this is a desperate Hamilton, not desperate, but they need to win this game in order to host the East semifinal.
Well, if Montreal can possibly get past Ottawa the day before as 14.5-point favorites, I think we all kind of acknowledge that that's going to happen because Montreal's inspired. Honestly, that'll be the thing, and this will be probably the best test you could have for backups if you're Craig Dickinson, Jason Moss, Jason Shivers, and the Riders coaches, right? Because you put backup quarterback Isaac Harker in there, but you have to deal with Jagarrett Davis and company, Simone Lawrence and that back five, right? This is the real test. When Isaac played in 2019, it was against an Edmonton team that didn't really care. It meant everything to the Riders, but it didn't mean anything to the Elks at the time. This is the reverse of that. So, hey, you're going to get Hamilton's best knowing that they probably have to win that game. So I love this for all the young guys. Jamal Morrow, who will be in at running back. Hey, you've been great in the return game, but what will you have against a run defense that's out to get you? It's going to be fun for the Riders for sure.
Let's talk about the Riders season as a whole. They get the second place in the West. They get to host the West semifinal. If I told you that going into this season that, hey, they're going to finish second, they'll get to host a playoff game, would you have taken that?
Oh, I'd have been stunned. I mean, really, Louie, with all these injuries, 4 guys tore their Achilles 2 days before training camp, and a guy tore up his knee in the green and white game, and 17 guys would be on the 6-game injured list, including multiple guys who probably would have been all-stars. I would have taken this in a heartbeat. 9-4, it's their record. They're 6-2 in one score, 6-2 now 7-2. Pardon me, in one score games. Right? They play it really tight, and bounces have meant everything to the Riders so far this season because the offense is inconsistent. The defense, if they're not creating turnovers, gets run on and passed on. I absolutely would have taken host in the West semifinal for sure.
So how did they do it? I mean, how did they overcome all these things? Those Achilles injuries day one of training camp. How did they manage to pull it off? How did they manage to get to 9-4?
Honestly, it's a lot of really great coaching individually and coordinating at each level. As the season has gone along, you've seen Jason Shivers change this defense throughout. They're now running like a cover 2, essentially, is sort of their base defense. You've seen it evolve as they go along. With Jason Moss in the offense, they went, okay, well, we don't have this and this. Okay, well, now we're going to really focus on this stuff behind the line of scrimmage. And the hitch screens and tunnel screens to Kyron Moore and now Kean Schaefer-Baker are going to become a big thing. And we're going to sprinkle in that downfield game when we have a shot. And then, hey, we're going to add in Duke Williams and bring that along. But just constant evolution, I think, from the coaches. And then props to the players, right? Like, you're the 3rd and 5th tackles on offense. All right, well, get out there and do it because no one's asking you that once the game starts. You just got to do it. You are the backup field corner and field halfback. All right, well, go out and lead us in tackles in the game against Edmonton because there's no other option, right? You as a player who wants to be a pro football player, you have no other option than to try and be great. And man, a lot of love deserves to be spread a lot around. And then guys creating turnovers is really the big thing for this entire season. Guys creating turnovers and keeping them in the tops in that category in the Canadian Football League, near the tops.
You mentioned the coaching, the coordinators. Jason Moss, I mean, he's proven himself to be a very good CFL head coach before. He's proving himself to be a very good coordinator. Is this one of those things that, Riders fans should maybe enjoy him while they have him? Because I have to imagine there's going to be a couple of head coaching vacancies coming up. There always seems to be, I'm sure. Is Jason Moss kind of fast-tracking himself back into a head coaching role with what he's been able to do in Saskatchewan?
I wonder because the numbers the offense have put up have not been amazing, right? We're not talking about Cody Fajardo in the same MOP level that we were talking about him in 2019. Yards per pass, they fall in the bottom half of the league. Yards per rush have been a real problem for them so far this season. I think that people could absolutely look at Moss and go, well, he did have success as a head coach, and yeah, he does some good stuff at coordinator. Look at the flexibility he's been able to show working with Trevor Harris and then Michael Riley and then Cody Fajardo, three different quarterbacks. I think if you're looking for a head coach, though, someone needs to take a shot with Jason Shivers. Honestly, he's not been a head coach in this league. He's a guy who's got high goals and expects a ton of himself. And, man, players cannot say enough good stuff about Jason Shivers and how, I mean, he has all the tactical stuff you need, having come up under Chris Jones, but his greatest strength is probably man-to-man and being a player's coach. So, honestly, if I'm pushing somebody, if somebody needs to take a shot at a head coach, I think maybe Jason Shivers is the one they need to look at.
Who on this Riders team has kind of stepped up from kind of relative obscurity to becoming a household name? Like, who is someone who's really impressed you this season?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would have to say, I mean, the big one is probably Kean Schaefer-Baker, the rookie receiver from Guelph. He kind of popped on. We didn't know much about him, but all of a sudden, when Shaq Evans went down, they threw him in at that boundary wide receiver spot. And then just immediately making plays down the field, making plays behind the line of scrimmage. Here's a 71-yarder against Calgary. Oh, by the way, he takes a little tunnel screen and beep bop boops into the end zone in a play. I have no idea how he scored still. Kean Schaefer-Baker has really been the one among the unknowns. I think a guy, I mean, we all knew AC Leonard, and I think a guy like Luches Purifoy, I don't know we're taping this before the awards come out, but this is a guy who's MOP level for the Riders this season that I hope we've known about him right from his stops in BC and Ottawa, but I think we need to acknowledge that he is among the elite defensive backs in the Canadian Football League. So a little known, but I hope he becomes really well known after this season.
And I remember like week 2, we were recording this very same show and I had brought up a couple of players and you had said Purifoy is someone you were definitely keeping your eye on and certainly has really turned it on. I want to get your perspective on this team right here because the Hamilton Tiger Cats, I was talking about this with Matthew Shinetti earlier this week. He and his assessment was that every time we expect the Ticats to do something, they seem to do the opposite, right? So we expected them to beat the Argos, and they didn't. So from your assessment, you've watched a lot of Canadian football. You know the sport pretty well. What do you make of the Hamilton Tiger Cats right now?
To me, they're still the most talented team in the East. Like top to bottom, still the most talented team in the East. Shooter's right. Like that loss to Toronto, absolutely. I was dumbfounded. I have no idea how that happened because Toronto, props to being 9-4. You're not the same team that Hamilton is. The defense, I mean, on all 3 levels, the defense of the Ticats is fantastic. Quarterback it is up and down, right? And it was up for 4 games where Masoli was just bebopping and scatting, and he was dropping dimes on receivers and not throwing passes that were interceptable. And then Toronto kind of undid that. Hamilton's intriguing because a lot of talent in a lot of spots, and yet they don't seem to care about running the football at all, which is the axiom that people have continually been throwing at us once it turned to November is you got to be able to run the football. I don't know that I 100% believe that, having watched a bunch of games and going, if you can get Brandon Banks and Dunbar and Acklin and heaven forbid Braylon Addison comes back from the injured list, I think you could be just fine without running the football. I think Hamilton has too much talent. To me, they're still the team that's going to win the East. And so I'm very curious to see what they look like. The whole season I've been thinking, well, they started with important guys on the 6-game injured list. What will they look like in Week 16? So I'm now excited to see them in Week 16.
And I do want to get your assessment on this because I brought it up on Tiger Cats post game after the game on Friday after the Argos had clinched. Like the Argos, there's a lot of Argos starters that will go 30 days between games, right? McLeod, Bethel, Thompson, like between that game, like it'll be 25, 30 days. Like, what do you make of that? Because rest is obviously important at this point of the season. But for guys who are in the business of hitting other people, wearing pads, putting them on, like what's your assessment on that extended break between games for both the Bombers are doing it too and the Argos? Like that's a long time.
Yeah, I think it's a long time, but ultimately, I mean, these guys don't just do what I do and would go lay on the couch, right? Like my vacation, my Christmas vacation, I'm just laying on the couch. These guys are still keeping their mind sharp, right? Even if they're not getting reps in football games. I feel like people will point to, oh, well, remember when Calgary was 15-3 and then they end up losing the Grey Cup? And you go, sure, Ottawa beat them in the Grey Cup, but they happened to win the West Final in between. So you can't really say that those weeks off hurt Bo Levi Mitchell in that particular case. I think there are way more examples of the team was who they thought they were, and Grey Cups and playoff games for their whole are just random at points, right? If you're a 60% favorite, you're going to lose 40% of the time. So I would not be worried about that. To me, the most important part is get them to the most important games healthy. That's very clearly what Toronto did on Tuesday's game. They did not seem to care a lick. Well, the guys who played cared, but overall, winning was not their main focus. Let's say it that way.
Well, as someone who I don't want to say regrettably, because it's always a great time to watch football in person, but as someone who paid money to go see that game, the entertainment value, I guess I should say, wasn't top dollar. DT, I appreciate you doing this as always. One more before I let you go, because the Grey Cup we announced there's going to be the East Social, there's going to be the West Social. Earlier it was announced it's going to be a little toned down. I know Grey Cup's always a great party. What are you most excited about with Hamilton hosting the game in just a few short weeks here?
Oh, I'm excited to see a home team in the Grey Cup. I still fully believe that's going to be the way it goes. And I wish I was sucking up to you, Louie, but this is honestly what I've been saying all season long, and I don't really see any reason to change. I love the thought of a home team in the Grey Cup. 2013, it happened here in Regina. It was the Riders and Ticats. So I kind of hope for maybe the not the total reverse of that, but Riders, Ticats in a Hamilton Grey Cup where the Riders happen to still win it. But that's, I mean, we can debate that last part later.
DT, you can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time I saw you was probably week 1 of the 2019 season. The Saskatchewan Roughriders opened their season here against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. That was a very, very long time ago. I am very much looking forward to seeing you in person Saturday afternoon here at Tim Hortons Field.
Thanks, Louie. Me too, buddy.
Awesome. Thanks for doing this. This has been Speaking with the Enemy. Make sure to join us on Saturday when Luke Melinder joins us as we get set for the Ticats and Riders, 4 p.m. Week 16 here on the Ticats Audio Network.
Speaking with the Enemy, dropping twice weekly before every Ticats game. Like and subscribe to get inside the enemy's head.